Recently, there were some statistics by healthcare company Cigna indicating that men are the loneliest generation. In fact, 18 to 24-year-olds are lacking friends, intimate partners. They're feeling increasingly alienated from society. And when you look at statistics in regard to their education, whether or not they're working, more and more of this data reinforces that there is something awry. And addressing it doesn't mean that you turn your back on issues pertaining to women, but it does mean that we should be focused on what it is in society that is leading to this epidemic, what the left can do to offer solutions, and how we can basically fight back against the more nefarious figures who have filled the void that men are struggling with, people like Jordan Peterson and what have you. Now, recently, Vaush, who's a popular streamer, had tweeted this thread that I think is really, really important to address. He writes, "I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand that 12-year-old white boys on Twitch are not being pulled into fascism because of some Machiavellian desire to preserve and expand their privileges. It's because the right talks to them and the left doesn't." He continues to argue that leftists and progressives have absolutely no idea how unnecessarily repellent they come off to so many people, and they get angry at the idea of being a more effective social movement because they don't want to share their social spaces with people who might have gone another way. But the criticism for leftists continue, and to be honest, I agree with a lot of what Vaush says here. He says leftists will write master's theses on the effect of socioeconomic conditions on crime, and then shrug when 10 million more young men fall into fascism because their boy brains must just be innately fascist and they choose to be evil, and there's no way this could have been prevented. And then the final tweet, because I want to make sure you guys get a full look at what he's thinking here. This is always a good topic to feel smug over because the replies and quote tweets are saturated with people who literally think, quote, "we should care about men's problems and offer them advice" is a dog whistle for "we should build a Fourth Reich," thus proving the problem. Now, joining us today to talk about this is the man behind the Twitter thread, Vaush. And I want to thank you, Vaush, for taking some time to talk to us about this today.
Oh, it's an absolute delight. Don't mind the cam, by the way. Like young men, my camera encoder is alienated, just in this case from Skype. It's a pleasure to talk with you about this.
So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot because I've been just noticing it in the community around me, just like the loneliness and how atomized men are. And I don't see it as, addressing it isn't, in my opinion, a right-wing perspective or a right-wing task. I think that there are issues that the left would do a far better job in addressing as opposed to more nefarious right-wing figures like, let's say, Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson. So before we get to all of that, what the potential solutions could be, talk to me about what you see, what you think the problem is right now with young men feeling alienated in the United States.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to something leftists tend to be more comfortable talking about, which is toxic masculinity. Male loneliness is often an emergent property of toxic masculinity, which is, by the way, nobody likes this term, right? The right gets really upset when you say toxic masculinity because it sounds like you're upset with masculinity in general, and it's a really vague term. So let's just say, I think a lot of guys can be kind of antisocial because they're taught that sort of independence is a masculine virtue. They're taught that there's value in keeping your feelings bottled up. Now, obviously, it's pretty harmful. It makes people feel kind of lonely. It makes them bad at reaching out to others, connecting, sharing their interests, building friendships. I think it's one of the reasons why guys tend to view dating as sort of adversarial, because they don't think of like a woman as like, oh, well, maybe we'll just get along on some shared interests. Maybe we'll have something in common. They think of it as this like a mating battle, which I don't think it has to be. And as a product of that, a lot of guys feel like they have no social inroads and they're kind of drifting through life without connections to people. It really sucks. And the left could, use that as an opportunity to maybe improve some people's lives, introduce them to some other ideas.
So just full disclosure, when the statistics first started coming out and they focused primarily on the lack of intimate partners, to be fair and completely honest with the audience, I was definitely more dismissive. But then when you see the other statistics, including the lack of friends, workforce participation for prime working age men between the ages of 25 and 55 has actually decreased significantly, and specifically in the United States. And so, there have been some arguments that, it's the advancement of technology, it's because of video games. Well, all of these technologies exist in other countries, and they're not experiencing the same decline in workforce participation. In fact, to give you a specific number from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, about 7 million prime working age men are not working and they're not looking for work. They're also self-medicating quite a bit. A huge portion of them have reported that they're taking painkillers daily. Deaths of despair are very prominent and pronounced among the male population versus the female population. These are huge issues. In fact, the Bureau of Labor Statistics also noted that when it comes to unemployment among working age men, we have a 1937 economy, okay? And again, this is not happening in other rich developed countries, right? So there is a crisis happening, and I'm trying to figure out what is it exactly, right? The right wing will say, it's feminism. It's because women don't want to stay at home and raise kids. They want to be independent. They don't want to enter, romantic partnerships, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy that for a second. I do agree that some of the rhetoric is a problem, statements about toxic masculinity, a lot of generalizing about people. I also think that there's a misconception that this is an issue that predominantly impacts white males, but that's actually not the case. The largest population that this impacts is actually Black men in America. And so this is a huge problem. And what do you think we need to say or frame, or how can we frame this issue so it's more palatable to the left, who generally do want to ensure that every community is looked after, that everyone feels that they're living a happy, prosperous life?
It's a tough sell. People feel these issues in their gut. When we talk about the kinds of things that drive people out to vote or even to throw revolutions, we're usually talking about very basic gut level problems that political analysis gets added to. For a long time in this country and many others, anti-immigration sentiment has been built on the anxiety of working class people who feel their jobs are threatened by immigrants. Often the data doesn't bear that out, but it's their fear that's used as a catalyst to push those politics. The anxiety, the loneliness of young men, this has historically been used as catalysts for, basically everything from the Bolsheviks in Russia to the brown shirts in Germany. It's just a large and often unaddressed demographic. This isn't a competition thing. We're not talking about giving up on feminist analysis or saying it's like, actually men have it worse than women, right? It's not about that. It's just, you want to reach out to people where they are. And to start that process, with a lot of young guys, I think it would help if lefties were willing to acknowledge this sort of natural conclusion of toxic masculinity as like a mode of social analysis, which is if men are socialized in certain ways and treated in certain ways socially, it necessarily follows they must have specific problems. And if those problems are the product of social systems that are out of their control, I don't know why we wouldn't apply the same basic sociological lens of analysis to that as we would with literally anything else. Patriarchy, racism, transphobia, no individual has control over these systems. And we try to interweave analysis with our compassion for and respect for the individual problems people have. We do this all the time with other issues. And to an extent, we do it with men. But I feel like we lean off that a little bit, maybe because men's rights as like a sort of a nominative thing, like how it's referred to, usually refers to misogynist or incel communities online. So it's like, men's rights, you actually mean like this or that. Well, leaving aside the baggage, right? You can call it what you want, men's advocacy, whatever, just common decency, it's still worth pursuing.
Yeah, I think the phrasing men's rights activists, it does unfortunately make one recall some of the most unsavory individuals imaginable, right? Some who think that rape should be legalized. So I don't like thinking about that group when it comes to this particular issue, because I don't think this is about male entitlement. I don't think this is about men feeling or fighting for a system in which men get to feel entitled to certain things in society, including, certain sexual acts, whatever it is. This is really about making sure that people don't feel lonely, feel that they have purpose in life. That's the other thing. An increasing number of young men feel like they have no purpose in life. And I think that it has to do with the fact that for the longest time, they were conditioned to believe that they are supposed to be the breadwinner in a family. And when they are lacking this educational attainment necessary to get the kind of career that makes the kind of money that makes them feel like the breadwinner, well, then it makes them feel like they're not really worth anything. I see a lot of that going on as well. When you look at the number of college educated men, that has declined significantly. And so some of the solutions that I've heard from people who do take this seriously on the left is that, hey, there's a lack of male role models in the public education system. There's a huge disparity between female and male educators in the public school system. Curious what you think about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is. I do think it's unfortunate that we consider education such like a feminized profession. Not because there's anything wrong with female teachers or whatever, but obviously people take a lot from their education, and any significant disparity in representation is going to reflect some kind of social value. So, I mean, we can see the need for this reflected in the fact that two of the largest breakout conservative figures in the past 5 years, respectively, Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate, both became powerful in exactly the same way. That is to say, they postured as like self-help gurus for young men who felt like they'd been failed by society and left no options to better themselves otherwise. Now, the prescriptions those two offer are garbage and completely irredeemable. I think Jordan Peterson said you should clean your room. You can do that, but apart from that, don't listen. But it shows what people are going for, right? And frankly, it doesn't take a lot of internet sleuthing to find out that a lot of people are feeling really listless these days. Mm-hmm. You have to give people identities and aspirations. I see a lot of this discussion with young women. One of the discourse bits that always comes up, it's how do you be a good feminist, but also like, what about this feminine wiles thing, right? Or like, how do I balance my progressive attitudes on gender with this, that, the other attitude I have on what it means to be a woman? It's an interesting topic. I have no skin in the game. Good luck, right? I don't know how often that gets resolved in left spaces with guys, because it is a good question. How do you resolve, progressivism with being a masculine guy? A lot of women you might want to date kind of do like manly guys, at least some of them, right? But what does it mean to be manly in a context that isn't, Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson? Just having the conversation might get a lot of folks invested, or they might understand that the left is interested in these issues beyond a sort of token, surface level political skim where they're trying to get people off the top. Compassion.
Yeah, compassion's the right word, I think. And, you got a lot of backlash for talking about this. And, you might tweet about it, but where I've heard you actually talk about this issue at length is on your streams. And I think you're thoughtful in the way you talk about this issue, but you still get hit with, oh, you're just a secret right winger from your critics, right?
It's been known to happen. I know.
What's behind that? Because I feel like that is what most of, at least the online left, I don't know if I can say that about the left in general. They seem to spend a lot of time going after one of their own who might have some ideas that are a little different, or might have concerns that are a little different from their own.
Well, the gatekeeping tendencies of the left are how you know you're a leftist, right? If you're a good leftist, the people you hate most should be other leftists. It's the only way to know.
I'm a great leftist then.
Yeah, we're phenomenal leftists. I think there's kind of I don't want to overuse the term, or maybe use it lightly, the term trauma, but I feel like after the past decade of online discourse, people are very sensitive, especially on the left. People are very sensitive to the idea that we need to treat men better, not necessarily because they disagree with the idea of treating men better. That seems like a nice thing to do broadly. I would hope a lot of people would agree with that, but rather because we need to treat men better has often been couched in this very ideologically loaded set of policy and social prescriptions that usually have to do with undoing the gains of feminism, or at the very least negating the harms that women experience socially because of the patriarchy or inequality. fully sympathize with the sensitivity. I mean, I've been online for a while. I see how the discourse tends to go. But we have to be strong enough to understand when a dog whistle isn't a dog whistle, when it's just a term. I would hope that a lot of lefties could understand. You may have an aversion to the capital M, capital R men's rights movement, a justified one. But to the outside, when you seem to be taking a stance against the concept of men's rights, people who aren't as familiar with the context of that discourse might interpret that as you literally politically being opposed to like men doing all right, which doesn't do great for them recruitment numbers. We could really use those. Things in the country aren't going great right now, and bereaved masculinity is basically the front line. It's the bulwark of the fascist movement that's growing in this country. Steve Bannon was specifically recruiting from incel forums. Those Andrew Tate 12-year-old TikTok flossing tweens or whatever are not going to grow up to vote for Biden when he's 105 years old. There is a trend that's happening right now. There is a group of people looking for answers, and that's young men who do feel listless. And you can watch them be pulled away by a multi-million-dollar effort from the right to appeal to their insecurities, or you can try to do something about it. And to me, there is an obvious right answer here.
I agree with you on that. I'm gonna leave you all with one final statistic, and this is incredibly alarming. A May 2021 poll from the Survey Center on American Life revealed the number of American men who view themselves as having no close friends quintupled over the last 30 years, increasing from 3% in 1990 to 15% in 2021. So for anyone who thinks that this is just about male entitlement to sexual activity, you're mistaken. Open your eyes, look a little harder, because if you consider yourself a progressive or a leftist, the whole ideology is to want to uplift people, pick people up when they're down, and immediately dismissing this very clear issue that continues to grow in the country, I don't think is the right way to go. I think the left needs to offer better solutions. And to be completely frank, I don't know exactly what those solutions are yet, but I want to have more of these conversations moving forward. And Vaush, I'm grateful that you took the time to talk to us today.
And I'm incredibly grateful that you reached out and gave me the opportunity. Thank you very much. And yeah, it's not a zero-sum game. It's really not. We lose nothing by trying. And the advice, the engagement, it's just it is at par with what we're willing to do with basically every other group, every other social issue. Just the decency to give it a little bit of a sociological look over and maybe arrive at some prescriptions. I think we can do that, and I think people want to do that too once they get past the cloud.
Absolutely.